The market was full of noise, but inside one small cage there was silence. The silence of a child who had forgotten how to cry. The alien slave girl sat with her knees pulled close to her chest, her head down, and her eyes empty. She was small, thin, and weak. Dust and bruises covered her body. To the traders, she was not a person. She was just an item, just a thing. They called her a broken toy. Once, maybe, she had been full of life. Once, maybe, she had laughed, dreamed, and hoped. But now she was nothing but a shadow of that child. Her voice was gone, her trust stolen, her heart shattered. Shouts filled the air as buyers walked between cages. Strong alien warriors were sold for heavy prices. Beautiful servants were taken away with greedy smiles. Machines hummed as merchants counted credits and argued loudly. But when buyers walked past her cage, they laughed. "Who would want that one?" a heavy voice asked. "She's broken," another man sneered. "No fire in her eyes. She's useless." "Not even worth a meal," a woman muttered. The girl heard every word, but she did not move. She had learned long ago that showing feelings only brought pain. If she stayed quiet, maybe they would ignore her. Maybe they would leave her alone. But the traders never left her alone for long. They pulled her from her cage sometimes, forced her to stand, forced her to walk. When she stumbled, they hit her. When she stayed silent, they mocked her. She was not treated like life. She was treated like trash. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark of life still remained. It was so small, so weak, but it refused to die. She kept it hidden, deep in her chest where no one could reach it. She did not know why she held on, because hope only brought pain. But still, the spark remained. That night the market was crowded again. Buyers from many species filled the hall. The air was thick with greed. And in the middle of it all, the small alien girl sat in her cage, forgotten, ignored, until a shadow stopped in front of her. The girl lifted her head slowly. A man stood there. He was not like the others. His face was human. His eyes were sharp but not cruel. His clothes were simple, not like the rich robes of other buyers. He looked at her, not like she was an object, but like he was searching for something. The traders laughed when they saw where his eyes landed. "Don't waste your time," one said. "That one is useless, a broken toy." "She won't work, won't obey," another added. "She's damaged. Take another." But the human did not look away. He crouched down, his eyes meeting hers. For the first time in years, someone looked directly into her eyes and did not laugh. He did not spit. He did not hit her. He just looked. The girl's heart beat faster. She wanted to hide her face, but she could not. His gaze felt strange. It felt dangerous. Not because it was cruel, but because it was kind, and kindness was something she had forgotten. The human spoke, his voice calm but strong. "I will take her." The traders froze, then burst into laughter. "You can't be serious. She's broken. Look at her, worthless." The human stood tall. "I will take her," he repeated. The crowd whispered. Some shook their heads. Some thought he was a fool. Who would buy such a useless child when there were so many stronger, better slaves? But the human ignored them. He pulled out credits and handed them over. The traders grinned. To them it was free profit. They had thought she was unsellable, and now this fool had paid for her. They shoved her out of the cage roughly, almost tripping her as they handed her over. The girl did not understand. Why would anyone want her? She was broken. She was nothing. She waited for the human's hand to strike her. She waited for the pain that always came. But instead his hand was gentle. He placed a small cloth around her shoulders, covering her thin frame. She blinked in confusion. No one had ever covered her to keep her warm. "You are safe now," he said softly. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. She wanted to believe him, but she could not. Safety was a word she had never known. Humans, aliens, all were the same. They hurt, they used, they destroyed. Why would this one be different? The traders laughed as the human led her away. "A fool with a broken toy," they shouted. "Let him waste his credits." But the human did not answer them. He walked slowly, carefully, making sure the girl could keep up with his steps. And as they left the market, the alien girl felt something strange inside her chest. It was small. It was fragile. It was almost too weak to notice, but it was there. It was the spark. The spark had been waiting, and now, because of one human's choice, it flickered alive again. She was still broken. She was still afraid. But for the first time in a long time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, her story was not over. The night was cold when the human led the alien girl away from the slave market. Around them, the city buzzed with lights, noise, and movement. Traders shouted, machines rumbled, and voices filled the streets. But for the girl, the sounds felt far away. All she could hear was her own heartbeat, fast and loud, echoing in her fragile chest. Her thin feet dragged against the ground. Every step was heavy with fear. She did not know this man. She did not know why he had chosen her. In her mind, one thought kept repeating, "He will hurt me too. He will use me too." The human walked beside her, calm and steady. His tall figure was strong, but his steps were not harsh. He slowed his pace so the small alien girl could keep up. His hand did not pull her roughly like the traders had done. Instead, he kept a gentle distance as if he understood how much she feared being touched. When they finally reached the edge of the city, the girl froze. Ahead stood a strange ship, small, old, but clean. Its lights glowed faintly in the dark, like a safe lantern in the night. She stared at it with wide eyes. A ship meant travel. A ship meant being taken far away. She shivered. The human opened the ramp. "Come," he said. The girl shook her head weakly. Her thin fingers dug into the cloth he had given her. She could not move. She could not trust. The human's eyes softened. He did not shout. He did not force her. He simply crouched down so his eyes met hers again. "You are free from them," he said in a quiet voice. "No one will hurt you here." The words hit her like a strange wind. Free? She had never heard that word spoken for her. She was a slave, a broken toy, a forgotten thing. She had never been free. The human stood again and walked slowly into the ship, leaving the door open behind him. He did not drag her. He did not command her. He just waited. The girl hesitated for a long time. The cold air bit her skin. The market's laughter still echoed in her ears, and inside her chest, that tiny spark flickered again. Her small feet finally moved, one shaky step at a time, until she climbed into the ship. Inside, the air was warmer. The lights were soft, not harsh. The seats were clean. There was no smell of chains, no smell of blood. For the first time in years, she was in a place that did not feel like a prison. She sat in a corner, hugging her knees. Her eyes stayed on the human, never leaving him. She waited for him to reveal his true self. She waited for the moment when kindness would break and cruelty would return. But the human only worked quietly, pressing buttons, checking controls. He did not even glance at her with greed. When the engines hummed to life, the girl flinched, but the human's voice came calmly over the sound. "Hungry?" he asked. She stared at him, confused. No one had asked her that before. Hunger was not something slaves were asked about. It was something they suffered in silence. Her lips trembled, but no words came. She could not remember how to answer. The human stood, walked slowly to a storage unit, and pulled out a small pack. He opened it and placed food on the table near her, simple bread, fruit, and water. He did not push it into her hands. He simply left it there and went back to his seat. The girl's stomach growled, but still she hesitated. What if it was a trick? What if the food was poisoned? What if he would punish her for touching it? She stared for a long time until hunger became stronger than fear. Her small hand shook as she picked up the bread. She took one tiny bite. It was soft, warm, real. Tears filled her eyes. She had forgotten what real food tasted like. The human did not laugh. He did not point. He simply smiled faintly, then turned his gaze back to the stars outside the ship's window. For the first time, she realized something strange. This man was not treating her like a slave. He was not treating her like a broken toy. He was treating her like a person. And that scared her even more. Because if he was truly kind, then her heart might begin to hope again. And she had learned long ago that hope was the most painful thing of all. The ship flew quietly through the dark sky. The girl ate slowly, every bite both healing and frightening. She kept watching the human, waiting for the mask to fall. But the mask never fell. When the stars shone bright through the windows, the human spoke again. His voice was soft but firm. "You are not broken," he said. The words struck deep into her chest. She almost dropped the bread. Her eyes widened. Not broken? That was all she had ever been called. Slave. Broken toy. Worthless. Those words had chained her soul, but now this human had spoken different words. Words that shook her. Words that her heart wanted to believe but did not dare to. She turned her face away, hiding the tears that rolled down her cheeks. She did not answer. She could not. The human did not ask again. He only sat quietly, giving her space, as if he understood. And in that silence, the girl realized something terrifying. Maybe, just maybe, this human was telling the truth. The stars outside the ship stretched like silver rivers, endless and beautiful. But the alien girl did not see beauty. She had never learned how. For her, stars had always meant distance, chains, and cages. She sat curled in the corner of the ship, knees pressed to her chest, her thin arms wrapped tightly around herself. The human sat in the pilot's seat, quiet, his hands steady on the controls. He did not chain her. He did not shout. He did not strike her. Hours passed, and still he said nothing cruel. It was confusing. It was dangerous. The girl's eyes stayed on him, sharp and scared. Every breath, every move she watched. Her mind whispered, "He is waiting. Sooner or later he will show his true face." But the human did not change. When the engines finally slowed, the ship drifted toward a small station hidden in the void. It was not loud like the market. It was not crowded with greed. The lights here were calm, soft. It felt like a forgotten corner of the galaxy. The ship landed gently. The human stood and looked at her. She flinched, expecting orders, expecting pain. But his voice was quiet. "You will rest here," he said. Rest? The word was strange to her. Slaves did not rest. Slaves worked until they fell. The human walked to a side door and opened it. The room inside was small but clean. A simple bed, a blanket, a small lamp. No chains, no cages, just space. The girl's body froze. Her mind screamed, "It's a trick. Don't trust it." But her tired bones ached, and her thin legs shook. She had not slept on a real bed in years. The human stepped aside. "It is yours," he said. She blinked at him. Yours? Nothing had ever been hers. She was property. She belonged to others, never to herself. He left the doorway open and walked away, giving her choice. He did not push her inside. He did not lock her in. He simply waited. The girl's small feet moved slowly, almost against her will. She stepped into the room. The blanket looked soft. Her hand reached out and touched. It warm, real, her throat tightened. She sat on the edge of the bed, ready to spring back if it was a trap. But nothing happened. The human did not follow. The door stayed open. For the first time in years, she lay down. The blanket covered her thin frame and her eyes closed without her meaning to. She tried to fight sleep, but her body gave up. That night the alien girl dreamed. Not of chains, not of whips. She dreamed of a quiet sky where no one called her broken. When she woke, light shone softly from the lamp. For a moment she panicked. Where was she? Then she remembered. The ship, the room, the human. She sat up quickly, her heart racing. The human was in the main room preparing food. She smelled something warm, soup. Her stomach growled, betraying her. He noticed and spoke, his voice calm. Eat. She did not move. Trust was still dangerous, but the smell was strong, and hunger pulled at her. Finally, she stood, her bare feet silent on the floor. She walked carefully like a small animal afraid of a trap. On the table sat a simple bowl of soup. Steam rose from it. The human placed a spoon beside it and stepped back. He did not force her. He just waited. Her trembling hands lifted the spoon. She took one sip. Warmth spread through her body. Not just warmth of food, but warmth of care. Her eyes filled with tears. She quickly lowered her head, hiding them. She could not let him see. Tears were weakness. Tears were punished. But the human's voice came gentle. No one will hurt you here. Her throat burned. She wanted to believe him, but belief was dangerous. Still, as she ate slowly, she felt something shift inside. Something she had buried deep. It was small, fragile, almost forgotten. Hope. Days. Passed on the station. The human worked on repairs, checked supplies, and moved quietly around the ship. He did not chain her, he did not treat her as a tool. Sometimes he spoke. Simple words, calm and steady. Rest. Eat. You are safe. At first she stayed silent. She did not know how to answer. But slowly, carefully, she began to whisper back. Her voice was rough, weak, but it was hers. One evening, as the stars glowed outside, she asked the first question she had spoken in years. Why, me? The human looked at her, his eyes steady. Because you are not broken, he said. Her chest tightened. She shook her head. I am, she whispered. Broken toy. His answer was firm. No. You are alive. That means you are not broken. She could not understand. But those words planted something inside her. A seed. That night, as she lay under the blanket, her hands clutched the cloth tightly. Her eyes stared at the ceiling, wide and wet. She remembered the market, the laughter, the pain, the chains. And then she remembered his words. You are not broken. Her heart hurt, but it hurt in a new way. Not the sharp pain of cruelty. It was the ache of something trying to heal. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she whispered into the dark. Thank you. No one heard, her but herself. But the spark inside her chest glowed brighter. The alien girl was still afraid. She was still scarred, but in the human's quiet care, she had found something she thought she had lost forever. The first sign of hope. The days on the human's ship passed like soft shadows. For the alien girl, time no longer moved with whips and chains. She had food when she was hungry, water when she was thirsty, and rest when she was tired. Each day felt like a quiet dream she did not trust. She still watched the human with sharp, scared eyes, but she also noticed small things about him. He fixed broken wires with steady hands. He cleaned his ship with patience. Sometimes he even hummed soft tunes while working. The sound was strange, almost gentle, and she listened in silence, pretending not to care. Her thin body grew stronger. The bruises faded, though the scars remained. The human gave her clothes that fit, not rags, a blanket that warmed, not chains. She began to walk with less fear, though her eyes still carried shadows. But the past is never far. Scars may fade on the skin, but they burn deep in the soul. And the past does not like to be silent. One night she woke in terror. Her small body shook, her throat burned with screams that refused to escape. In her dream, she was back in the market. Chains cut her wrists, voices mocked her, laughter filled her ears. A hand struck her across the face, hard. She opened her eyes, gasping. The room was dark. The ship was quiet. But her heart would not calm. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She pressed her hands to her chest as if trying to hold it together. The human appeared at the doorway. He had heard her. His eyes studied her trembling frame. She expected him to be angry, to shout at her for being weak. But he only asked softly, "Nightmare?" She could not answer. Her lips moved, but no sound came. He stepped closer, careful like one approaching a frightened animal. He did not touch her. He only placed a cup of water on the table beside her bed. "You are here now," he said gently. "Not there. Here." His words floated in the air, simple but firm. The girl clutched the blanket tighter. Slowly, her shaking eased. For the first time, someone had seen her break and had not hurt her for it. The next day she spoke. Her voice was low, rough like broken glass. They sold me when I was small." The human listened, silent. "I was too weak. Couldn't work like the others. They called me useless, they called me broken." Her eyes stared at the floor. "Every house, every owner, they hurt me. They laughed at me. Until no one wanted me anymore. I was just trash." Her throat closed. She hugged her knees, rocking gently. "I learned to be quiet. Quiet hurts less. Quiet lives longer." The human's voice came calm but strong. "Quiet is not living," he said. She looked at him with wide, wet eyes. "Then what is living?" she whispered. He held her gaze. "Living is more than surviving. Living is choosing, feeling, dreaming, and you will live again." Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe. But the past screamed louder. The chains were gone, yet she still felt them pressing against her skin. Later, while the human repaired part of the ship, she sat nearby, silent. Her eyes followed the sparks of his tools. Slowly, she spoke again, her words uncertain. "Why didn't you choose someone else? Someone stronger? Someone whole?" The human paused, then looked at her. His answer came without hesitation. "Because they were not you." The girl's chest tightened. His words were simple, but they struck deep. She lowered her head, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. For years she had believed she was nothing but a broken toy, discarded and worthless. And now, this human spoke as if she was more than all the others. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? That night she dreamed again. Not of chains, not of whips, but of fire. She dreamed she was running, chased by shadows of her old masters. Their voices screamed, "Broken, worthless." Her small legs stumbled. She fell. The shadows closed in. She woke with a cry, clutching her chest. And this time, without thinking, she ran, not away, but toward the main room where the human sat. He looked up, surprised, as she stood there shaking. Her lips opened and a weak whisper escaped. "Don't let them take me back." The human rose. His presence was strong, steady, like a wall against the storm. He placed his hand over his chest. "No one will take you," he said. His voice was not loud, but it was final, like a promise written in stone. The girl stared at him, her small frame trembling. Then, slowly, she nodded. Something broke inside her that night. Not her spirit, but her fear's control. Days later, while watching the stars from the window, she touched her chest softly. The spark inside her was no longer only a spark. It was small, but it was growing. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I am not broken." The words felt strange, dangerous, but they were hers. For the first time, she dared to speak them aloud. The past had returned, screaming its shadows. But the human's presence had given her something stronger. A shield, a promise, a chance. The past still lived in her scars. But now, she had something else too. A future. The station was quiet, far from the noise of the markets and the cruelty of the slave masters. In that silence, the alien girl began to change. At first, the changes were small, almost invisible. But day by day, something inside her slowly woke up. She spoke a little more, though her voice was soft like a whisper carried by the wind. She ate without shaking. She walked without waiting for a strike. And sometimes, only sometimes, her lips curved into the smallest smile. The human noticed everything. He did not push her. He did not demand she become strong overnight. He gave her time, space, and patience. When she struggled, he stayed close but never forced. When she hesitated, he waited. And slowly, the bond between them began to grow. One afternoon, the human worked outside the ship, fixing a panel that had been damaged. Sparks flashed from his tools. The girl watched him through the window, her eyes wide. For the first time, she felt worry. What if something happened to him? Thought surprised her. For so long, she had cared for no one. Caring only brought pain. But now her chest ached in a new way. She pressed her small hands to the glass, whispering softly to herself, "Don't get hurt." When he returned, carrying the heavy toolkit, she ran forward before she could stop herself. "You're safe," she said quickly, her cheeks warm. The human smiled faintly. "Always," he replied. Her heart fluttered at the simple word. Later that day, he placed something in front of her on the table. It was a small device, glowing faintly. "What is it?" she asked, her voice still unsure. "A learning pad," he explained. "You can read with it, learn, anything you want." Her eyes widened. Learn? Slaves were never allowed to learn. Knowledge was forbidden. But now, here it was, glowing softly in her hands. She touched it carefully, almost afraid it would disappear. The pad opened to simple lessons, words, symbols, stories. She began reading slowly, stumbling over the strange letters. The human guided her, patient and calm. Each time she made a mistake, he corrected gently, never cruelly. And for the first time in her life, the girl felt pride. Pride in herself. As the days passed, she read more. She asked questions. She even laughed once when she mispronounced a word, and instead of punishment, the human laughed with her. The sound was light, free, and it startled her. Laughter. She had forgotten it was possible. At night, when she lay in her small bed, she thought about the strange feelings in her chest. Fear was still there, yes. But something else was growing. Stronger trust. She remembered his words again and again. "You are not broken." Each time she repeated them silently, her spark of hope grew brighter. But the galaxy is not blind. In the dark corners of space, whispers traveled. Traitors spoke of the human who had taken the broken toy. Some laughed, but others did not. Some saw danger in his choice. If one slave could heal, could others also? If one broken toy could become whole, what would that mean for the market of chains? Greedy eyes turned toward the human and his ship, and shadows began to move. One evening, the girl sat by the window watching the stars. She spoke softly, her voice trembling but brave. "Why? Do you help me?" The human stood nearby, arms folded, his gaze calm. "Because no one should live in chains," he answered. "But I am only one," she whispered. "One life is still worth saving," he said firmly. Her throat burned with emotion. She looked at him for a long time, and in her small heart, something new bloomed. It was not just hope, it was connection. A bond stronger than chains, stronger than fear. The next day, while practicing reading, she came across a word she did not understand. "Family," she read slowly. She frowned. "What does it mean?" The human paused, his eyes softening. "It means people who care for each other, not because they must, but because they choose to." Her lips parted. "Family." She repeated the word quietly, as if tasting it for the first time. Family. Could she have that? That night she dreamed again. Not of chains, not of shadows, This time she dreamed of the ship filled with warmth, laughter, and voices calling her name. She dreamed she was not alone. When she woke, tears rolled down her cheeks. But these tears were different. They were not from pain. They were from longing, from a heart slowly healing. The human found her sitting by the window again. She turned to him, her small hands clutched to her chest. "Am I really not broken?" she asked, her voice shaking. He knelt beside her, his gaze steady. "No," he said, "you were never broken, only hurt, and hurt can heal." Her eyes filled, but this time she did not hide her tears. She let them fall, and the human did not turn away. He simply stayed beside her, silent but present. For the first time, the girl believed, not fully but enough, that maybe she could heal. And outside, the stars shone bright, as if the galaxy itself was watching. The bond between them had grown, and soon the galaxy would test it. The bond between the human and the alien girl grew stronger with each passing day. She was no longer the silent shadow she had once been. Her steps were firmer, her eyes a little brighter. She still carried scars, but now, hope lived in her chest. Yet the galaxy was never safe for long. Far away, whispers spread. Slave traders muttered in anger. The broken toy who had been useless now walked with light in her eyes. To them, this was dangerous. If one slave could heal, others might follow. Fear could no longer control them. And so, the traders decided, she must be taken back. The night was calm when danger arrived. The girl sat by the window of the ship, her hands clutching the learning pad, softly reading words. The human repaired a console nearby. For a moment, life felt peaceful. Then, alarms rang. The ship's sensors screamed warnings. Red lights flashed across the walls. The girl froze, her small body trembling. What is happening?" she whispered. The human's voice was firm. "We have visitors. Stay behind me." The ship shook as claws latched onto its hull. The girl's eyes widened. In terror, shadows moved outside. Slave raiders armed and ready. The past had come for her. The ramp hissed open with a sharp metallic cry. Figures stepped inside, tall and cruel, weapons glowing in their hands. Their eyes locked onto her immediately. "There, she is," one sneered. "The broken toy." The girl's breath caught in her throat. Memories flooded back, chains, cages, pain. Her body wanted to collapse, her legs wanted to run, but she could not move. The raiders laughed. "You thought you could hide her, human? She belongs to us." The human stepped forward, placing himself between them and the girl. His voice was steel. "She belongs to no one." The raiders grinned. "Step aside. You can't fight us all." But the human did not move. He stood tall, his body a shield. The girl watched him, her heart pounding. Why would he risk himself for her? Why would anyone? The raiders grew impatient. One raised his weapon. "Last chance. Give us the toy." The human answered with action. He moved like lightning, striking first. The fight exploded in the narrow corridor. The girl gasped as energy blasts lit up the room. The human fought with fierce determination, every strike precise. He used his strength not to kill recklessly, but to protect. Each time a raider aimed at her, he blocked the shot, taking blows on his armor, pushing forward with unshaken will. But the raiders were many. The human staggered as one blast struck his shoulder. Blood darkened his sleeve, but he did not stop. Theo, girl's heart twisted. She had seen fights before, but never like this. No one had ever fought for her. She wanted to scream, to move, but fear chained her still. A raider lunged past the human, reaching for her. His hand grabbed her arm roughly. "Got you, broken thing," he snarled. Her scream finally broke free. "No!" The human roared and slammed into the raider, ripping him away from her. He struck hard, sending the raider sprawling. But in that moment, another blast hit him in the side. He dropped to one knee, his breath ragged. The girl's world froze. He was bleeding, he was hurt, and for the first time in her life, she faced a choice: run or fight. Her body trembled. Every instinct screamed to hide, to curl into a ball and wait for pain. But then she saw him, bleeding, still standing, still protecting her. His eyes met hers, fierce and unyielding. In that moment, something inside her broke. Not in pain, but in strength. She would not run. Not this time. Her small hands grabbed the learning pad. With a cry that tore from her chest, she smashed it into the face of the nearest raider. He stumbled back, shocked. She kicked, clawed, fought with all the fury she had buried for years. "I am not broken," she screamed. The words echoed through the ship like thunder. The human surged up again, fueled by her cry. Together they pushed back. He struck with skill, she with raw desperation. The raiders, shocked by her sudden strength, faltered. One by one they fell back, retreating into the night. The ramp closed. Silence filled the ship again. The girl collapsed to her knees, shaking. The human dropped beside her, his body heavy, with wounds. She stared at him, tears blurring her vision. "You're hurt," she whispered. Her small hands pressed against his bleeding side. Why did you do this? Why for me?" His voice was weak but steady. "Because you are worth." Her chest broke with sobs. For years she had been told she was worthless, broken, nothing. But here he was, bleeding, risking his life, because she mattered. She held his hand tightly, refusing to let go. "Don't leave me," she begged. His lips curved faintly, even through the pain. Not leaving. That night, as she tended his wounds with trembling hands, she realized something. The human was not just her savior, he was her family. And for the first time, she was no longer a broken toy waiting to be taken. She was someone who could stand, someone who could fight, someone who could choose. The test of loyalty had come, and both of them had passed. The ship was quiet after the battle. The air smelled of smoke and burned metal. Broken panels sparked, weakly, and the floor was stained with blood. The human sat against the wall, his breath heavy, his wounds deep. Beside him, the alien girl worked with trembling hands, pressing cloth against his side. Her small body shook, but not from fear. This time it was from determination. She would not let him fall. Not after everything. "Stay awake," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, don't leave me." His eyes, though weak, still held strength. He looked at her and gave a faint smile. "I'm not leaving. Not while you need me." Her tears fell onto his hands. For years, no one had cared if she lived or died, and now, here was someone who fought through blood and fire just to keep her safe. She pressed harder against his wound. "You saved me," she said softly. "Now I'll save you." Hours passed. She cleaned his wounds, wrapped them as best as she could, and stayed by his side. She refused to sleep. Every time his eyes closed, she shook him gently. "Stay with me," she begged. And slowly, his breathing grew steadier. His color returned. He was not safe yet, but he would live. Relief flooded her chest. She leaned against him, exhausted, and in that moment she realized something. She was not powerless anymore. She had faced her past, fought her fear, and chosen to stand. The broken toy was gone. Days later, the human was strong enough to move again. Together they repaired the ship, piece by piece. The girl worked with him, her small hands steady, her eyes filled with focus. She no longer hid in corners. She no longer trembled at every sound. When the last panel was fixed, the human looked at her. "You're stronger now," he said. She shook her head gently. "Not strong alone," she whispered. Her gaze lifted to meet his. "Strong. With you." He smiled faintly, pride shining in his eyes. But the galaxy had not forgotten them. News spread of the fight. Rumors reached other slaves. Rumors of a girl once called Broken who now stood tall. And those rumors lit sparks of hope across The stars. Somewhere, chains rattled with fear, not from slaves but from their masters. The girl stood at the window watching the stars. Her reflection stared back at her, no longer hollow, no longer empty. Her scars were still there, but they told a different story now. They were not marks of weakness. They were proof of survival. The human joined her, silent for a moment. Then, he asked, "What do you see out there?" She thought carefully. "Before I saw cages. I saw darkness. Now," her lips curved into a soft smile, "now I see paths, places we can go, places where no one calls me broken." The human nodded. "Then that is where we'll go." That night she spoke words she never thought she would say. Her voice shook, but her heart was steady. "I was afraid, always afraid. I thought I was nothing, but you showed me I can be more." The human listened, his eyes warm. She placed her hand on her chest. "My heart, it was broken. But you repaired it, not with chains, not with force, with kindness." Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of release. "For that, I will never leave you." The next morning, the ship lifted into the sky. The engines hummed with new life, just as the girl's heart did. She sat beside the human in the cockpit, no longer cowering in fear but sitting with pride. When the stars stretched out before them, she whispered, "Where to first?" The human glanced at her, smiling. "Anywhere you want." Her lips curved into a smile brighter than the stars. For the first time, she was not following orders. She was choosing. She was living. But fate had one last test. As they traveled, they intercepted a distress call. A small group of slaves trapped on a raider ship begging for help. The girl's chest tightened. She knew that voice. The same fear. The same pain. She looked at the human. He did not speak. He only waited for her choice. Her hands trembled. The old her would have hidden. But now, her heart burned with new strength. She nodded. "We helped them." The human's smile widened. "Then let's begin." When they reached the raider ship, the girl walked at his side, no longer hiding. The raiders sneered when they saw her. The broken toy? They laughed. Back again. But this time she did not tremble. Her voice rang out, strong and clear. "I am not broken, not a toy, not yours. I am free." The slaves inside heard her words. Their eyes lit up with hope. And as the fight began, she stood not as a victim, but as a warrior beside the human. Together they broke the chains. When the battle was done and the slaves were free, the girl stood tall among them. They looked at her with awe, whispering her name. For them, she was proof that chains could be broken, proof that hearts could heal. The human placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You see," he said, "you are more than you ever believed." She looked at him, her eyes shining. "I am not broken. I am healed. I am family." And with that she stepped forward into the galaxy, no longer a slave, no longer a broken toy. She was whole. She was free. She was the repaired heart.